I met a lot of the people who actually stayed, I think, only for our panel. To me, this is the most interesting panel. Um, and I just wanted maybe to summarize some of the conversations I have had throughout the day today. This is an interesting week. We have here a conference on accelerating investments in Montenegro. At the same time, we have the annual meetings at the World Bank Group in Washington, D.C. And everywhere the conversation is the same. The spotlight is on mobilizing additional finance because the investment needs are great, but there is need for additional capital to finance all these investments that the minister so nicely laid out. And me being from Bulgaria, I do have the I do have, the advantage of actually understanding without needing the translation. So thanks a lot for this. So I think what is necessary really is, you mentioned here, is to talk about innovative finance. In the past, the EU was associated mainly with traditional grants. And this remains very important as part of the EU's toolbox. However, we have moved beyond grants to providing financial instruments that can mobilize every euro we provide and multiply it. So that is done usually in two ways. One way is a bit more familiar to colleagues who work on public sector infrastructure projects, and that's blending, where you mobilize IFI investment, whether debt or equity, but you make it more affordable for these large strategic projects by blending EU grant with the IFI investment. That is a bit more familiar. It is really one of the ways to improve connectivity, for instance, public sector infrastructure. It can also be used for strategic private sector initiatives. What's new, however, is the use of EU budgetary guarantee. And I want to talk a bit about it because Montenegro has high ambition to join the EU. And when I talk about EU budgetary guarantee, for all of you who follow, we have two basically funds that try to do the same. They try to leverage the AAA rating of the EU budget to mobilize additional investment. Inside the EU, it's called InvestEU. Outside the EU, it's called something else, but it is the same mechanism. It is using EU budgetary guarantee. In the next financial framework after 2027, when Montenegro will hopefully join the EU, we will also continue to have this set up. There will be a new competitiveness fund, and there will be still EU budgetary guarantee for supporting these investments outside the enlarged EU. Now, it's really important then for Montenegro, right? Because it doesn't really matter. Before or after accession to the EU, Montenegro will have to make use of EU budgetary guarantee instruments and build these capacities to utilize them, because if you don't, others will, right? I mean, that's how it is. So what it is really, it's actually very sophisticated. And don't get me wrong, I love grants. Grants are very easy, but I mean, blended finance is not easy. It is complex, it is sophisticated, because we require to build new type of partnerships. And these are partnerships that require time, they require also costs to be built. Just to simplify it for you, for instance, the EU budgetary guarantee is implemented through implementing partners that could manage funds from the EU budget, financial instruments from the EU budget. This could be development finance institutions, and here with us we have the European Investment Bank, which is one of our main implementers. In the room we also had EBRD, another major partner, but we also have others in the room. We have AFD, we have KfW, we have IFC, we have ETFI that actually collects all these bilateral European development finance institutions. So you see, we have plenty of partners. Inside the EU, national development banks, development funds have also developed capacities to access the EU budgetary guarantee directly or through, for instance, European Investment Bank or the European Investment Fund. So the possibility is there, but I mean, it also means that this brings complexity as to the available menu of products. And I think basically what drives a lot of these discussions I had in the corridor is I have this investment concept and what is really appropriate for me. And I think that is where we need to pay more attention. It is really matching the supply with the demand. And I am the only woman on the panel, so I think I do have an extra minute to explain to explain a bit on the to explain a bit about the financial products that could be de-risked using this instrument. I mean, it can be used, for instance, to support direct investments in a special purpose vehicle, or in a corporate, basically if you want to provide a loan to a corporate directly through a development finance institution. That is one more simple way to do it. But it can also be used to structure vehicles by providing, for instance, a first loss capital for an impact fund. It can be used to mobilize equity investments or to share risks of equity investments, either directly into company or through funds. We also have solutions that provide liquidity for private investors that want to invest in funds. And that's important because illiquid assets is one of the main market obstacle for these investment strategies. You mentioned environment. We have programs for investments in natural capital, very important for a country like Montenegro with this outstanding nature. We could support thematic bond issuances, for instance, using EU budgetary guarantee. I just wanted to give you a taste that the product menu is very rich. Yes, it does bring complexity, but it also brings lots of opportunities to match this supply and demand that also you mentioned here on the bank side. And finally, of course, a lot of the risk sharing takes place through local financial institutions, and that allows banks like theirs to provide lending with better collateral terms or longer tenor. We have risk sharing for green SMEs. We have risk sharing programs for agri-finance, agri-businesses and value chains, and also programs that allow to link supply chain from Montenegro to EU. A lot of opportunity, and I'll come back to some of it in the follow-up questions. Thank you.